Should the Sussexes profit from their royal status?
The Sussexes, Harry and Meghan, should they profit from their royal status? Is that what you think they're doing? Or that they may end up doing?
I think what they may well end up doing, most likely, let's be honest. We've already seen them trademark the Sussex name, and I think it's highly unlikely that they won't continue to carry on this trend. Yeah.
Lawrence, what's your view on it all?
Sussex Royal. I feel sorry for them in a way, because it's difficult when you've got a new baby and all of that, and it's hard. But I just have this feeling that surely Harry must have had a chat to Meghan at some point and said, by the way, darling, this is going to be misery, and you don't have to marry me if you don't want to. And then,
well, maybe they did.
Yeah, maybe they did. But then, and then you want to hop out. It's like, well, can we have the cottage back and your HRHs?
So you think they're doing the wrong thing? Do you think it's disrespectful?
I don't. I think it's really unfair because look, we've got the Queen, who is an extremely different ball game, isn't she? She's duty ahead of everything else. And I think, when you're younger, you do want to make a life for your family. So I do empathise with them, but I do think there's a little bit of having cake and eating it, which I don't enjoy.
Okay. Yes, the woman there, stuck your hand right up.
The problem we've got with this is that Meghan has agreed to be Harry's wife, and then the press have torn her to pieces. And let's be really clear about what this is. Let's call it by its name. It's racism. She's a black woman, and she has been torn to pieces.
You can't.
She has been torn to pieces.
It's not racism.
It absolutely is.
We're the most tolerant, lovely country in Europe. Let's celebrate our women. It's not racism. It's so easy to throw the charge of racism at everybody, and it's really starting to get boring.
What worries me about your comment is you are a white privileged male who has no experience in this.
I mean,
I can't help what I am. I was born like this. It's an immutable characteristic. So to call me a white privileged male is to be racist. You're being racist.
You cannot dismiss.
Okay. I'm not taking a view either way. I'll just add in that Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, also took the view that it wasn't racism. I'm not making a judgment on that either way. The woman in the red top there, as this question's asked, you were nodding your head along vigorously. What have you got to say?
Oh, well, I think when Meghan first married Harry, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I thought it was good. I thought it was nice to have somebody like her who was not a royal. She came from America. She came from an ordinary background. I thought that was all great. But I think that she's actually joined a club and now she just doesn't like the rules and she wants to opt out. And as Laurence said, I think surely she must have she's an intelligent woman. Surely she must have realised some of what was going to happen.
But it might be Harry
who's
driving
this. Harry, but it seems to be that it's Meghan that it's all about. I don't know.
Oh, no, we don't. We can only speculate, can't we? Yeah. Shami, what's your take on this?
I think that you've got to walk around in someone else's shoes. Now, I know that to be royalty is not to be the worst off person in the country or on the planet, but I still try to walk around in someone else's shoes. And I do think that some of the things that are being said are pretty harsh. And I would never say that because you're a white man, you don't have a perspective, but I would ask you to consider the perspective of anybody who's had a different experience. And I know that Britain is a wonderful country, and I'm second to no one in my love of my country, but it is, loving your country doesn't mean that you say there is no racism in the country and there are no issues in the press. Forgive me, and I think in this city, perhaps more than anywhere else in this country, you know about abuses by parts of the press. And and if we want to be specific and look at evidence, I looked at a piece, I think it was in BuzzFeed today, where there was a very forensic comparison between the treatment of the two princes'
Well, shall I quote? Because
Yeah,
I've got it.
yeah.
So this is the Daily Express. So the Daily Express is talking about Kate choosing flowers. And in August they said, in 2011, this is obviously for the wedding, like the bride herself, the bouquet was effortlessly elegant and understated. Then the Daily Express on Meghan choosing flowers for her wedding, how Meghan Markle's flowers may have put Princess Charlotte's life at risk. Now, that's obviously wholly select. I'm not saying that represents the Daily Express's perspective on the thing, but that's
And it goes on
indication.
and it goes on, and one's touching their bump too much and the other one's not touching it enough,
Yeah.
and avocados are good and avocados are evil. It was so forensically done. And it's not just the press. I mean, some of the. I mean, I'm not on social media because I'm a dinosaur, but I'm also not on social media because some of it is just so awful. And I do think, forgive me, I do think that that the Duchess of Sussex has had some really rough treatment. Now the question was, is it right that they should profit from their? It's tricky, isn't it? Because we can't have it sort of both ways. If we say we want a slimmed down royal family, we want to spend less public money on people who are not in the direct line of succession, etc., etc. You say that on the one hand, and then you say, oh, but they shouldn't profit from their. They cannot. Prince Harry cannot escape his birth and his status, and part of that is a very, very tragic story about losing your mother when you're too young. I have some sympathy for that, have some empathy for that, and I think we should just tone it down a little bit, you know?
Lawrence, did you want to come back in before I go?
Yeah, I think that it's one of the dangerous things about throwing racism around in this country, which we're doing a lot at the moment, is people become so conscious of it that things like the Manchester grooming scandal get ignored. So that, you know, we need to be careful that we need to call out racism when it's seen, when it's obvious and when it's there, and we should stand together to condemn it. But for fear of sounding racist, there's been horrific things have happened in Manchester and in towns all over the north of England, and we should be careful and use racism when it's there and it's obvious, and not call someone racist just because they don't agree with you.
Alan, so coming back to the original question, I mean, you know, when this story broke, what was it, Wednesday, a week ago, I don't think any of us could have foreseen how it was going to go. We've now obviously got this you've got the Mail and Mail on Sunday possibly calling Meghan Markle's father, having a kind of Markle on Markle situation in the court, in the libel case. I mean, what's your view on what's happening?
I think it makes the UK looks like it's lost its marbles, forgive me. I mean, I really struggle, given all the issues that are kicking about in the world, to find any headspace for this whatsoever. I think the royal family has been... The press alternates with the royals between utter sycophancy and everything's fabulous, or sheer hatred. And we've seen it over the years with each member of the royal family. Now, if they want to go...
there is an issue of public spending. I mean, it's not entirely frivolous and out with the public domain.
Sure,
You're talking about security and sovereign
But of
grant
all
and
the
what have
issues
you.
facing us, I don't think this is the biggest one. If they want to be private citizens, good luck to them. I wish them well. They absolutely give up their right to public money when that happens. Absolutely. But this isn't the issue we need to be talking about.
Okay. Well, lots of people want to talk about it, and that's why we're doing it. That's kind of
Lots
what
of
happens
people
on
want to
Question
talk
Time.
about Celebrity Love Island. That doesn't mean it's important either.
No, not in this room. Not a single question on that. I'm very glad to
But
say.
racism is a bit more serious. The idea that there is no racism in Britain is quite a serious issue, and it goes beyond
no one
beyond
said
deep.
that.
Laurence,
No one
that's
said
not-
there's no racism.
Madeline.
So no doubt there has been a great deal of racism directed against Meghan Markle from members of the public and some sections of the press. Of course there has. But I think in general what is really aggravating people isn't the colour of her skin, but it's the arrant hypocrisy that they have shown on many occasions. Even the way in which they want to exit the royal family is, you know, they're not proposing to be like, you know, let's say the Dutch royal family where you cycle to work and you maintain a regular job. What they're proposing is a kind of strange hybrid where you'll retain many of the perks and privileges of being in the royal family, but you expect none of the duty. And to go back to the original question about are we going to see them cashing in on their brand? Yes, I think we will. I think we're going to get a kind of woke celebrity, sort of Gwyneth Paltrow meets Greta Thunberg with a bit of Kardashian thrown in for good measure type thing.
God, now you've painted an extraordinary vision for us all, Madeline.
And they say they want to avoid press coverage, but I think what they're hoping to achieve with this brand is to exchange UK coverage for US coverage. I think the public completely understands and empathises with their need to live a more private life. And there are routes out of the royal family that would enable them to do that. But what they're proposing is not a retreat from public life at all. And I think it's the hypocrisy of that is really annoying a lot of people.
Come here in the front. You've had your hand up for ages. Yes.
Fergie got 10 times worse press than Meghan's ever had.
Fergie.
And as soon as the press say boo to Meghan, I feel she pulls the racist card. Now, I'm, as she says, a woman of colour, and I feel she pulls the racist card every time. When there's something she doesn't like, she's straight off with it's racist.
I'm not sure she's personally has ever said that, but other people have said that for her.
Yeah.
Yes. And Harry's mentioned it, I think. The woman in the red top, yes.
Yeah. I feel as if they're not naive. They seem rather naive to me. And they've got their priorities all... They talk about being family-oriented, but...
We know what you mean, orientated, that's it.
But they seem to they know they're vulnerable, but they have priorities, they go around... But they didn't tell the Queen, and did they tell the media? But they just seem to be, to me, a couple who are quite naive.
Quite naive.
Yeah, they just got priorities round. Why didn't they tell the Queen? You tell your family, or you tell your family first. You know, they go on about their family, their child and everything, but
Yes, obviously we don't know if they didn't tell the Queen or not. We are all speculating.
Because we never fall out with our families, right?
No, never.
Let's be clear about that.
I think
It was perfect communication.
Let me hear from Helen, I'll come back to you.
Sure.
Helen.
Well, I mean, where there are questions of racism, I mean, let's just continue to put the message out there. It's not acceptable in our society. We won't tolerate it. We shouldn't tolerate it for members of the royal family.
Do you think their coverage is
tolerate
racist?
it for... I mean, I'm sure that Meghan, like others, you know, have experienced racism. I haven't seen the analysis that you went into, but you know, let's.
Well, what
let's
about the
look out
original
for it.
question?
But
Should the
with this,
Sussexes
I just
profit
think
from
that-
their royal status?
I guess to come back to the overall point, being a member of the royal family, there is clearly great sort of some material benefits, but it must be tough living your entire life in the public eye. Actually, I can't imagine. Okay, I am sometimes in the public eye, but not that much of my life is in the public eye. I think it must be really tough, and there are a huge number of duties associated with it, and you don't get to make all your own choices. And I have a huge respect for the royal family, huge respect for the Queen, and I just hope that it's a shame this is being played out so publicly, but I hope that they will be able to come to a conclusion and move on. And actually, as Alyn said, there's lots of other stuff that we should be focusing on our country, and that's where we should be focusing our time and our energies.
Man with this striped jumper there, yeah.
Oh, hi there. We've spent 10 minutes talking about a family of multimillionaires who exist on state subsidies, benefits. Can we move on to something more important, please? Because it's not relevant.